As far as whether I considered rowing when I was a freshman, I did not consider it. I mean, maybe for a minute, but I had kind of heard horror stories about having to wake up super early and trudge through the rain all the way across the river, and decided that was not necessarily my thing. But certainly, I have a bunch of respect for all the guys who did it, and I think they had a good time and made some good friendships.
Yeah, absolutely. I think for rowing is really like a part-time job. I mean, you really only have the opportunity to you can do your work, you can be social, or you can do well at sports. And so you kind of have to wrap those things into, your priorities. So I did my work and I was social with team and with my roommates. And that kind of panned out into kind of my friend choices for the rest of the time. In terms of the walk-ons, at least for the women, it's really a self-selecting group. So kind of to Jonathan's point, you're not going to do it if you're not enthusiastic about being on a team, getting up early, the discipline, working out till you can't move, all of those things, that's what you're signing up for, and they make it very clear. So there's actually kind of a hell week in the first week where there's extreme attrition. So they start out with a group of 50 and they end up with 5 people. So it's not like walk-ons, everybody's joining the team willy-nilly. It's any sort of game. The people that end up doing it are the ones that kind of survive. So it's not, and that they're not non-athletes. These are people who had been, the star volleyball player or a swimmer or something like that just didn't want to do that sport anymore. So it's not anybody can do it. I wasn't recruited. I actually made a conscious decision not to be recruited because I knew psychological, for 2 reasons. One is because Harvard tends to, at least when I was looking at schools, they tended to recruit very tall girls, and so if you weren't above a certain height, they just wouldn't look at you as closely. And so the second reason was that I really wanted to make sure that I was getting into Harvard because of my academics and not because of sports, and I didn't want there to be any question in my mind. So the team was a plus, but it wasn't my sole being. That wasn't the reason I was there, and it gave me the opportunity to kind of leave if I wanted to, which I ended up doing after 1 full year on the team for kind of to do other things, but also because my body was destroyed. 25 hours of working out a week will do that to you.
So the one exciting thing about Harvard is that not everybody, but a huge group of people come in with an incredible academic record and kind of intellectual history, but also have this thing on the side that they do. So for me, it was music. For some people, it was sports. I don't necessarily think that everyone is defined by that, but it's certainly something that's pretty common. So I would say that I think if you've reached that stage where you're that passionate about something and you've spent that many hours working on your craft, it's just such a part of you that being at Harvard, you'll find ways to devote time to it if it's important enough to you. So for me, I didn't perform in any of the student groups at Harvard, but there's a conservatory right down the street, Berklee Conservatory of Music, where many of the musicians that I looked up to went, and many of my peers actually went. So I still had connections sort of to that outside music world that I continue to use. So whether it be going to jam session in Boston or at Berklee, or even starting my own group of musicians at Harvard, or as I mentioned earlier, working in the recording studio. I think if something's important enough to you, you'll be able to find enough time at Harvard to kind of devote some time to it and see what you can do with it. Yeah, so I mean, Harvard has a great physical infrastructure. If you look at every single dorm, there is probably at least 1 or 2 fantastic grand pianos, and they're all kind of, some of them are located next to the dining hall, some of them are in their own private practice rooms. And so if you want to hop on a piano anywhere, you kind of can. If you have your own instrument, there are practice rooms, I think, in almost all the dorms. And then the other exciting thing is that, so outside of the music facility, kind of within your daily life, there's access to facilities. And then there's a great facility in the Quad called the Quad Sound Studios, which is something I was involved in, which is kind of a full-scale, almost professional quality level recording studio that students have access to, both as engineers and as potential clients. So that's another great resource that Harvard had. I don't know the specific details about the programs that Harvard has for for certain individuals for kind of sponsoring lessons or anything like that. I mean, so I know you can definitely take music lessons, and they have a great faculty over at Payne Music Hall. But I'm not sure about the specifics of what they offer. Again, as I mentioned, I chose to come to Harvard not to study music. I mean, all my peers who wanted to study music went to conservatories, and so if I wanted to study music primarily, I would have done that. So all the sort of music stuff that I did was sort of tangentially related to Harvard, but not directly. I wasn't part of the music department. I didn't take any music courses here. But I mean, they have a great music program. It wasn't what I came to Harvard for.